And joining us to discuss this is Head of Communications, the World Food Programme Nigeria, that's Lael. Good to have you join us.
Good afternoon, Precious, and thank you so much for having me on the show. I'd like to start by saying Happy World Humanitarian Day to you.
I wish you the same. Happy World Humanitarian Day to you too. We spoke with someone I consider your colleague, Fungunyan, earlier, and I want to start from something she said. She talked about how the humanitarian crisis, the climate change, is impacting on access to people who need humanitarian aid. Is that the same experience you're having within the World Food Programme?
That's a really interesting point. What we're seeing is that the climate crisis is making it that much harder for people in hard-to-reach areas and in areas affected by conflict to produce their own food. And so, of course, the goal is that we see people prosper and thrive and that they're able to succeed in agriculture and in farming. But the climate crisis is making it that much harder for people to grow crops that will produce enough food for them to feed themselves, but also for them to sell and make a profit.
And that also should should have a level of impact on their buying power, isn't it? It's because now we've seen a recent report that says Nigeria is the second poorest country when it comes to the ability of people to buy food.
I think the ability of people to buy food is a bigger concern about the rising food prices across the country and what that means on people's spending power as a result. If food prices are rising, it means that people who were earning a very low wage already are having to make very difficult choices about what they can buy.
So let's talk about what we're doing as a country. How are we handling this, the climate change emergency?
So I can definitely tell you about WFP working in Nigeria and what we've been able to achieve over the past year. This has been a very different time, a very different landscape for us, where we were primarily focused on the Northeast, where we have this ongoing crisis, but we were also seeing other areas sort of flare up as a result of other contentious issues. So if you take the Northwest, for example, we had to intervene there earlier this year and provide assistance in Zamfara state because we could see that conflict was spreading almost like wildfire from the Northeast over to the Northwest. And that was impacting people's ability to go out and earn a living or go out to farm. It meant that their markets had been burnt down or infrastructure had been destroyed and children weren't going to school. So WFP has been gradually scaling up its response in order to serve some of these communities and some of these areas that are being hardest hit. If you take last year, for example, when COVID-19 was at its most severe, WFP went into some of these urban areas for the first time, Lagos, Abuja, and Kano, and made sure that we were providing assistance to people who weren't able to go to work because they had been locked down and maybe had lost their jobs as a result of COVID-19.
And that's really commendable coming from the World Food Programme and other humanitarian agencies that have been of assistance in the country. But I asked earlier about how well we're doing as a country in terms of what state governments and the federal government is doing. What sort of support are you getting in terms of reaching people who need humanitarian aid?
Good question. If we take the urban areas to start, the food that we provided was donated by the federal government of Nigeria. So WFP came in with cash assistance, but the food, that was from the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. And that made a tremendous impact on people's lives. As I said earlier, it was for those people who had been locked down, unable to go to work, unable to earn an income during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then if you take in other areas in the Northeast, we're working hand in hand with the government to ensure that we have greater access to places that are hard to reach. So we're not only targeting our usual areas, but we're also working with the government to go into places maybe further afield and make sure that we're providing responses to everybody who needs it.
And Nigeria and other countries within Africa and around the world continue to depend on these humanitarian aid. So thank you so much, Chief, for all your efforts, and thank you to the World Food Programme. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you so much, Precious.